The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mai, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Don't go walking near the chasms, whatever you do. Well, here we are, post-bank holiday, back to school next Wednesday. A new academic year starts on Wednesday, the 4th of September. 8 weeks this Sunday, the clocks go back, and 9 weeks today, it's Hop Tune A. I know. And if you're counting, 16 weeks next Wednesday is Christmas Day. That means, what is it, 17 weeks today is New Year's Day? Oh dear me, 2025. The DOI, Caroline dropped a note in, the DOI statement regarding the closure of the sea terminal is shockingly complacent. After a very disappointing MGP, visiting bikers were told their sailing was cancelled and to make their own arrangements because the sea terminal was closing. So yet again, visitors were out in the rain. After all the bikers went through, this is a dreadful end to their MGP experience. I despair, says Caroline. Was nobody able to make a quick decision, or perhaps nobody actually cared? Thank goodness Barbary Coast had the gumption to offer hospitality, as otherwise the island would have been rightly ignored by bikers in the future. I just wonder what you think. Well, hats off to Barbary Coast. They realised what was happening, but no doubt the people at the sea terminal followed process. No doubt that's what they're told to do, close it after the last boat's gone. But really, what would we have said to those people who'd been rained on? And remember, during MGP in the rain, lots of people offered accommodation when people were blown asunder in tents and what have you. So really, is it really, and do we really need a government mandate or an industry or a departmental mandate to say we should look after these people who've come to the Isle of Man for MGP? Is that what we need? Do we need something in triplicate verified by a committee to do that? Well, if you've got any thoughts, by all means, please do get in touch if there's something you'd like to say. Lots of follow-up from what we were talking about yesterday, and it's kind of adjacent to that, and it is the situation at the airport. We did get some clarification from Brian Kelly yesterday about the aircraft and the problem getting spares, apparently, for certain types of aircraft, and the fact that the Guernsey government, the states of Guernsey, owns Aurigny Airways, that they have problems just because they have to get the planes in the right place, and sometimes flights have to be cancelled to keep the plane in the right place for the next day. All these aircraft are old. So is that just like buying the Ben McCree, 30 years old? Good luck with that. Do you remember how people were talking about how bad the Ben was? Well, that was years ago. It was 26 years ago. I think the Ben McCree kind of redeemed itself fairly quickly, didn't it? How is it due to COVID? Is this Brexit as well? This is talking about the shortage of air traffic controllers worldwide. As Brian mentioned, there's a worldwide shortage of air traffic controllers, and it's a very transferable skill. So if you don't like where you are in one place, you can clear off and go somewhere else. And John said it's very interesting to listen to Brian, knowledgeable regarding the travel industry. Well, after 40 plus years, I would hope he is. But thank you, John. Good to hear from you. Thanks to Brian for contributing yesterday. Thanks also to the many people who are talking about air traffic control. Surely this MC said this stems from airport management failures over the last 10 years. If it is true that we have a boss of air traffic control who can't jump into the seat because he has a military qualification and not a civilian qualification, then why do we do that? Surely somebody knew at some point there would be pinch points. And if we have a boss of air traffic control who can't jump into the chair, then surely they knew about this. And fatigue breaks are mandatory for controllers. If you break the regulations, there will be repercussions. Understood? Says MC, retired ATCO. He is, and Howard's with us now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. Once again, the government have put themselves in the forefront. You're saying about the sea terminal being closed.
Yeah.
Well, to my recollection, the government, the people of the Isle of Man, own the sea terminal. They are the owners of the steam packet. They're the organisers, with help from ACU, etc., for the Manx Grand Prix and various other aspects of it. And there they are, knowing what the weather's been, which is in nobody's control. They decide in their wisdom, because the ships didn't sail, which are owned by the government, they decided in their wisdom to shut down the sea terminal. Well, these people, I don't know who they were, and I don't know what the situation is, so I'm talking probably off the cuff, but surely someone in government could have made a decision. Are they capable? This makes you ask the question, are they capable of making a decision, a collective decision between them, that the people who've suffered complete discomfort, if it's the people of the island, the houses, the ordinary citizens of the island that came to these people's help in offering to dry their clothes, give them shelter, prepare food, etc. I remember this happening a few years ago, and it only for that, the praise of the motorcyclists and visitors of the people of the island, it created a much better feeling. But the government have, in one foul swoop, have destroyed all that by not having what joined up thinking.
As you said, Howard, when that happened a few years ago, when we've had horrendous weather sometimes, as you say, we make a virtue out of necessity.
Yes.
And as you say, everybody opens their tumble dryers and their drying rooms and what have you, and we get, wet bikers in and chat, and it's a bond of human fellowship when you do something like that. Now, it's obvious what's happened with the sea terminal. There's a rule somewhere that says it's going to be closed after the last boat, and that's that. And the person enforcing that, let's face it, if they'd acted against that, they could have been in for a right rollicking. So maybe the person,
I don't know about that.
Well, listen, the person who locked the sea terminal, can you imagine if they suddenly hadn't locked it and let everybody in? There will be somewhere somebody quoting the regulations to them, and they could have been up on a fizzer for doing that. Now, it points to the fact, and I've had a message in from somebody who just said, surely this wouldn't have happened if David Cretney had been Minister of Tourism. Surely somebody somewhere would have said, keep it open, put the heating on, and let these people stay.
Exactly. Well, you have W.H. Smith's down there, which would have been possibly put staff on. There's Costa there, which is the coffee shop. They could have had creature comforts. But no, they chucked these people out on the street like they're, waifs and strays, after coming over here and spending quite a considerable amount of money, not only with the steam packet, but possibly the hotels, etc. And all they're bleating about is getting insurance. You should have insurance to cover you for these things. But by the time you wander around town on a miserable night, it must have been a miserable night because the ships are cancelled.
Yeah.
And by the time you wander around in various places looking for a hotel to stay, well, it's not the best of environments. So these people in government, once again, and you keep hearing this, they should hang their heads in shame. They are oblivious to what's going on in this small island, and all they're worried about is just hate crimes and little fiddly things. And the real thing, the racing which was here and virtually wiped out because of the weather, and these people came in all good faith from all parts of Britain and maybe outside, and our government, the people we elected and the people we are paying, sat on their hands and done exactly nothing.
Well, thank the Lord for the people at the Barbary Coast. I mean, because they rescued the situation. This is private enterprise and somebody deciding it was the right thing to do. They could have locked up and gone home.
Exactly. And, I know a couple of the people that on the Barbary Coast, and they are genuine people. And this is what their train of thought was, and what the train of thought with the civil service and the government ministers. Now, you can't... Okay, there's a regulation there. But also, if that ship had decided to sail, they would have had to open that place anyway. So what is the difference in having some security on down there and having people restricted to the passenger area, not wandering all over the place, and, giving them a few creature comforts and out of the weather? Lord knows even the homeless people get that. So, once again, our government have let us down and let the island down.
I mean, what would you say, Howard, if somebody would say, in fact, we got a message in, somebody saying, look, the sea terminal isn't a hotel, it's never been a hotel, and people should always travel with insurance.
Well, they used to always have that place open day and night. Ships were sailing day and night, but at times, we tend to forget this. There were a lot of sailings cancelled, etc., over the sea cats and various things, but I don't remember it being shut down. And this cry of get insurance, get insurance, get insurance. How many people go off the island here? And I, for one night went, I'd been away to Newcastle, came through on the train, and I was getting the boat back. And Heysham didn't open up until 10:30. And I arrived there at 9 o'clock at Lancaster Station, come through with a taxi, and I had to sit outside. So we're not alone in that respect, but that's a steam packet run of that. But this is a sea terminal, and it's it's an area where people can be accommodated under circumstances such as last Monday. And the people that are in power should sit there and think about it. Now, what are we going to do? Can we do something about it? Can we help these people? They are visitors to our island.
And that's the point. And that is, if you these are travellers, and travellers, last thing at night in inclement weather, need help. They don't need regulations quoted at them, surely.
No, but that's what these jobs worths do. I'm sorry, but it says 6 o'clock or after the last boat, and then you're on your own, pal. Go and put your tent up out somewhere, and they'd probably tell them to move on then anyway. But where are the forward-thinking, and I hate that word, forward-thinking politicians who didn't get off their fat backsides and go down and say, we want this open because of the people that's going to be here? I think it was the Sea Cat. So you would have been talking of a couple of hundred people there wanting to go on board that vessel. Some could have gone back to accommodation and others not. And what if you had children there, younger children, because not everybody was over for the racing. So it's they're putting it down to being for the MGP. But there were travellers on the steam packet, which is owned by the Manx government. The sea terminal is owned by the Manx government, and the facilities are offered by the Manx government. So why didn't the Manx government get up their fat backsides and do something about it?
Okay, all right, Howard, we appreciate your point. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, then. Take care.
It's 12:20 on Manx Radio. If you've got any thoughts on this, then by all means, do get in touch if there is a way through that. I mean, once upon a time, it would have been open, let's face it. But nowadays, with risk assessments and insurance, liability and this, that and the other, everything's run by insurance companies. You can't do anything unless you have insurance cover, because the alternative or the possibility of things going wrong leaves everybody in the lurch. However, we did have visitors. It was a lousy evening. The boat had been cancelled and they had nowhere to stay. So surely, let's just look to the future and just say, if it does happen again, there is a contingency plan where we can actually look after our guests and they'll go away with a warm feeling, thinking, actually, the weather may have been rubbish. We didn't see much racing, but those Manx people are really great. They bent over backwards to help us, and we made some new friends. If that's a way out of it, it would be nice to think that we could do something about it. Tony said, look, the problem with the airport is it's badly run. It's not a parts issue or anything else. It's just poor management, says Tony. At what level, Tony? That's the whole issue, because obviously the airport director only runs certain bits of the airport. Other bits are run by the Department for Infrastructure. They run bits. So there are only certain areas that the airport director has jurisdiction over. Obviously, the airport director is now going. Mr. Cobb is leaving the island after just over a couple of years. So, I wrote to Mannin Line in May saying how many passengers on the delayed Mannin from Liverpool were dumped in Douglas at midnight 45. No assistance offered, says Sue. There were visitors arriving for TT Practice Week. No announcements on the boat saying if people needed help and advice, they should go to reception. I think shelter at the very least should be offered, plus transport to the main towns. Not everybody can afford a taxi at after midnight prices. Somebody needs to take responsibility before a vulnerable person suffers. Yes, Sue, you see, when something goes badly wrong, then everybody huffs and puffs and says something must be done. But surely we should be looking at doing something before something goes wrong. I would have been stuck if I'd been dumped in Heysham or Liverpool with nowhere to shelter until I could sort transport, but courtesy buses would help, especially at Heysham. Maybe the government needs to step up and sort out some kind of assistance for passengers who are caught out by timetable changes, which seem to become frequent at times. Thank you, Sue. We appreciate you for that message. And David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just to add to the flavour there, I spoke to a group of Germans that are over for the Grand Prix this morning, and they're over because they had trials bikes with them, and I was always a trials rider when I was younger. I had a chat to them and just said to them, what do you feel about the Isle of Man? What did you think about the Grand Prix schedule? I apologised for the rain and the weather. And they said, because they're all mature people, the Grand Prix is like a mature organisation that comes together. But they were looking for, like we had there, like TT Week, like a rally for Honda people. They were looking for rallies for Suzuki people and all these other little bits that we do. And one of the biggest things they said is they loved the Isle of Man. It was a great place. The population was hospitable, great. Everybody was friendly, telling them where to go here, there, and everywhere. But they were saying it was too short. And these are guys who are staying over for the 2-day trial.
Yeah. So
they've been here for a long time. They've been over nearly 3 or 4 weeks, you see. And these people have come, and it's like we're all saying, really, what's the impression we give to the people who are visitors to our island? Normally, it's a great experience. We always apologise for the weather, and there are certain delays. But like you say, with the sea terminal there, I'm sure somebody in authority, a chief executive or a political member could have said, the sea terminal, and it has been done in the past.
Yeah.
When people took, it's not a risk. It's what we call a cultured. It's a managed risk. So you know how many people come in. You lock some of the doors up. We've got cameras. We've got CCTV at the sea terminal, and we do have. I'm sure we do have, but I stand to be corrected there. Port security work overnight. So all they have to do is do a wet weather routine where people would come in, port security come in, and the odd time a police car would come down.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very surprised if there weren't some sort of contingency plan for something like this.
Well, yes, we have all these operations still in government. They were called Gold and Silver Command or Platinum Command, and they have these people. I forgot his name now. The guy was in charge of the civil defence, Blackburn. I hope he's... and he was a great guy.
Oh, Martin Blackburn.
Martin Blackburn. Blackburn.
Oh, he was in charge of the St John ambulance at the Royal Show.
Oh, right, yeah. No, great. He's probably retired now, and I haven't seen him for a long time. But anyway, he used to press a few buttons and get things organised. And what it was, Andy, it was all volunteers, wasn't it?
Yep.
Do you remember years ago when the campers were all washed out? The village halls, the charities opened their halls, free tea and coffee, and we had people even saying to them, bring your washing down here and we'll get it done for you.
And as I say, this brings out this is the kind of Manxness. This is where people from all over the world pitch up and suddenly find out what people are like on the Isle of Man, the hospitable, the domesticated nature of people on the Isle of Man, and that's worth millions of pounds in advertising.
It is when they go back home, and you know what they said to me today? What's happened to the scoreboards?
Oh, good grief! Yeah.
And I'll leave it there. Can't this government organise something with the major people like Honda, Suzuki, Triumph, all those companies? I'm sure they'll put 10,000, 20,000 in a pot. If they can't afford it, do something different.
Okay.
All right, Andy.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks, David. It's 27 minutes past 12 now. Fatigue breaks. Is the Isle of Man Airport operating set air traffic control standards? How many breaks do they really need for just a few flights a day coming in? After all afternoon, nothing happened. So how many breaks do they need, says Jamie? Well, it is set down in statute, really, for air traffic controllers. They're only allowed to do a certain amount of time with the headphones on, over the screens and what have you, and that really is virtually immovable. However, there are circumstances sometimes when things do need to be extended. I understand there is some flexibility, but not a lot. However, as it goes on, there are rules, aren't there? And at the moment, we're on the receiving end of those rules. So sometimes now, because all the flights are concertinaed into certain time periods, you then end up waiting sometimes the best part of an hour for luggage to come off. If you happen to be on the third flight in, you're waiting and waiting and waiting. So what used to be something fairly quick, where you could swiftly get through, get your luggage and buzz off, doesn't happen now, down to problems with air traffic control. The island's going the same way as the UK in all aspects. The government needs to hang its head. You need to use it or lose it, says Gary G. And Big Joe said, look, to the person who just said the sea terminal is not a hotel, you're the reason the world has turned inhuman. Oh, Joe, that's a bit sharp, isn't it? Why are people surprised at the DOI closing the sea terminal? Just remember, the DOI are the people in charge of potholes and shabby bus shelters. Do they care about the people? Always travel with insurance. That's what it's for, your emergency accommodation, says Texter 910. And they're saying, this is the person who's saying that the sea terminal is never open overnight, nor the shops contained within. Well, sometimes the sea terminal is open overnight if there are overnight boats. Was during TT, when there were, middle of the night boats from Liverpool into the Isle of Man. Maybe the government says France should build a brand new sea terminal. How much would it cost? Not much, would it? Given the proven track record in this department, just build a new sea terminal. Please don't start that. Here's a message in that just said the latest incident with the visitors not being allowed to stay in the sea terminal is just the latest example of the government that's not listening and seems to have no common sense or empathy. Does it come from the top? Is it the chief execs? Is it the ministers? Is it the chief minister? We never seem to get comments. Text, email, call and WhatsApp. And Joe said, by the way, any problems at the airport, it's not down to COVID or Brexit, it's decimalisation. Possibly. Thank you, Joe. So text, email, call, WhatsApp, lots of messages have been coming over in the past few days that I haven't got to, so I'll get to some. Let me see. Yes, the problems at the airport stem again from management failures and the problems with air traffic control. Morale may well be low at the air traffic control centre, as the families of friends of the air traffic controllers have to listen and read all the nasty comments about them. I certainly wouldn't stay here if you couldn't tell people what you do without people thinking you're lazy, always stopping for a cuppa. Well, I do hope we make it clear on Mannin Line and on Manx Radio in general. The air traffic controllers do a sterling job. The problem is there aren't enough of them. Now, that's not their fault. The air traffic controllers do a textbook job when they're there. But the problem is, and it's not their fault, we don't have enough of them, and consequently, sometimes the roster doesn't allow planes to be here. Having heard about 2 planes being unable to land at Ronaldsway when they were halfway here, surely the airport knew some hours beforehand and could have advised the 2 airlines and their passengers before they set off of the lack of control staff. So why is the airport not required to compensate the passengers and the 2 airlines for the inconvenience caused? Similarly, when the boat from Liverpool arrives at the sea terminal at midnight and there are no taxis or buses available, isn't the steam packet company required to provide some buses? It's not a great welcome to visitors if there are no buses or taxis available. Well, that's an old favourite, isn't it? The lack of buses if there is a late boat. Obviously, somebody will say that, it all needs to be sorted out and drivers need to be rostered and what have you. But really, we are extending hospitality to people. We're offering people a chance to come and see for MGP and for TT. We're providing things. Surely we would expect some things to go wrong sometimes, and people's travel plans to be not strictly standard. So is it enough for us just to shrug our shoulders and say, well, you might have to wait a couple of hours for a taxi? And by the way, the sea terminal's closed. And it's not our fault.
The only radio station that's Manx, and we're proud of it. Celebrating 60 years, this is Manx Radio.
Imagine waking up to the freshest Manx milk, dairy products and Noah Bakehouse goodies. Now you can start your morning the right way with free doorstep deliveries from the Isle of Man Creamery, delivered fresh overnight and at your door in time for breakfast, island-wide. Setting up a delivery is easy. Just head to isleofmancreamery.com or call 632 000. Isle of Man Creamery. Crafted to perfection since 1934.
Discover a fabulous range of watches, gifts and jewellery at Ramsey Art Gallery. With top brand watches from Bulova, Citizen Eco Drive and Storm to Acura's Seconda and Timex. Plus, all watch purchases come with free lifetime watch bracelet adjustment service. There's stunning gold and silver jewellery, gifts for all occasions, and of course a fabulous gallery of limited edition prints and original artworks. Find all this and more at Ramsey Art Gallery, Jewellers and Engravers, opposite Ramsey RNLI shop.
Foot or leg problems? Then contact Pop Podiatry, where all services are carried out by an HCPC registered and qualified podiatrist using the latest clinically backed treatments and devices, including the new Swiss Shockwave high-powered laser treatment for tendinopathies, plus nail surgery, verruca treatment and more. Conveniently based at the Nunnery in Douglas, see what Pop Podiatry can do to help you. For your free assessment, book online today. Get back on your feet soon with poppodiatry.com.
Achieve your business goals with Nicola Bowker & Co. Embracing the latest accounting technology, Nicola Bowker will help you to keep your accounts totally up to date with all the information you need at the tip of your fingers. Don't be kept in the dark. Come into the light with Nicola Bowker.
The Sunday Chill Out.
Hi, this is Chris Pearson from the Chill Out Show. On Sunday 22nd September, we'll be marking the end of summer with a live outside broadcast from the Cafe at the Sound between 6 and 9. Why not come and join us for some fantastic sunset views over the Calf for the autumn equinox. With drinks and chilled out tunes, the night is free, but we'll be raising cash for the I'll Listen charity. The Chill Out Show live from the Cafe at the Sound from 6 on Sunday 22nd September.
Flocking to the sea.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good to hear from you this afternoon. It's the UK, let me see, assists certain people with the costs of prison visits. Is the Isle of Man paying for visits to UK residents in Derby, says G. Where'd you get that from, G? Have you got any information on that? Is that skeet? You're not making that up, are you? Yeah, I think, do you think the government's going to hang their heads in shame? The government couldn't run a free drink in a pub. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's all very well, but where do we go from here? Okay, what has happened, and some bikers were left there. But interesting to know how many there were there, by the way. But what do we do next time? the next time that it happens. It's quite right. Closing the sea terminal at midnight would never have happened in David Cretney's time. I remember as a staff member of the tourist board being called in to help find accommodation for stranded visitors until 2 a.m. And I was back at work the next day. Happy days long gone, says Texter 302. It's a terrible situation, says Big John, for passengers of the steam packet thrown out on the streets in bad weather. Children, mums, dads. Disgusting, really. It's a sad situation. It's true that the sea terminal was the building available as an emergency room, and that training will be done there, so that only if the last boat has gone, says Kath. Air traffic control are required as long as our airspace and airfield is open. There are many other flights other than the usual commercial airlines. Of course, there's lots of general aviation. Good point, 178, that the general public is used to seeing, and transiting aircraft are always passing through our control zone. All require air traffic control, and brake requirements are governed by the CAA. 178, thank you for that. A question about Manx Care. This is it. Yes, if you want to get in touch with Manx Care, I think they had a do today in Derby, Manx Care and Advice and Liaison Service, MCALS. You can get in touch with MCALS if you want to make a complaint about Manx Care, or just to find out what it is you want. 642-642 is MCALS, the Manx Care Advice and Liaison Service, or email MCALS in capitals MCALS @gov.im. Formal complaints, by the way, if you want to formally complain about Manx Care, you can do through the Care Quality and Safety Team. That telephone number is 650-500, 650-500, or manxcarecomplaints@gov.im. Basically, Manx Care wants you, if you have concerns or issues about its services, to contact Manx Care directly instead of just sounding off on social media. Then something can be done really about it, because obviously it has to be registered. A complaint or a comment has to be registered, and something has to happen. If you just sound off on Facebook, well, nobody really does anything. I mean, it may make you feel better, or other people pile in, but nothing really happens. So anyway, Manx Care says they can't normally take action on comments made on social media, as they don't allow for proper investigation and response. So MCALS is the thing that we've talked about it many times. MCALS is 642-642, and as I say, there was a do at because I think it's its 3rd anniversary. There was a do at Derby Community Centre today. Wales has got 20-mile-an-hour restrictions, but only in residential and shopping areas, says Janie. We were talking about the speed of bikes these days and whether or not there is a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit for bicycles on the Isle of Man. And Carly dropped a note into me, and this is an interesting one. If you're in retail, I'd like your opinion on this. There have been a number of posts surrounding staff searches at work, where people have been suspended or dismissed from work because they purchase a product their work sells from another business, and they're automatically suspended pending investigation. It's raised concerns. Carly said, I don't think your work should be entitled to search you. It should be done only if you're suspected of stealing, and then again the police should be called. Your place of work shouldn't be allowed to search your bag, car, pockets, or even, in some places, to ask you to remove your shoes or even belts. This is obviously a concerning issue and surely needs to be banned. Now, if you know anything more about this, then by all means get in touch. And thank you, Carly, for raising that. The issue of staff searches has been, well, it's always been around, and in some places you're required not to have empty pockets and empty bags, other than in the staff lockers, if you like. But I don't know how common this is, whether or not people are actually searched for this. But anyway, get in touch. Be nice to hear from you. Couldn't get through on the phone in time to comment in person, but my simple view about where the money in the global warming debate is. And this is Paul and Liz dropped me a note to say, to get in at the bottom end of a list of the world's 10 biggest oil companies, you need a market capitalization of just under $50 billion. The 10 biggest oil companies are above $50 billion. If a climate scientist had proof that global warming was not caused by CO2, think how much it would be worth to these companies and, let's say, to the aviation industry. With a capable lawyer to help sell calculations, that particular scientist could be a multi-billionaire. But supposedly they all choose instead to promote a false climate change agenda for financial reasons, says Paul. It doesn't make sense to me. Well, it's a thought, Paul, and obviously at the end of it, no matter what people think above us, if you like, we the people, we the ones who in the end are going to have to pay for this, we'll have to suck it up. We'll have to pay for it all. Somebody somewhere is going to make a decision now. What you do about that and how you possibly contest it, well, any thoughts? Tommy's with us now. Hi, Tommy.
Oh, hi, Andy. How are you doing? All right?
Good. Yourself?
All right, mate, yeah. Well, we've been here in Victoria Avenue, overlooking Nobles Park, Andy. I could see everything. And it's a disgrace to ask all these bikers to come over to camp over there. It's never been drained in all its history, Andy. You know that?
Ever?
Ever. Never been drained ever since it was a farm, Andy. And that's the truth. You can go over. You can go from Duke's Avenue here, and you can go all the way down to St. Ninian's Road, and it was farmland, and it was never drained.
My word. Well, I wonder, and that's obviously Douglas Council now, that surely they'd be responsible for that.
But therein lies the problem, Andy, you see, because a boxing match, the corporation said, no, it's you're running the event, it's your responsibility, and then the government hit back at the corporation, said, no, it's your park, it's your responsibility, and so they're like two boxers hitting there trying to knock each other out, Andy. And it'll never change unless somebody takes them out and bangs their heads together and said you can't organise a big event like the TT was that we had, and it was the same for that as well. And then the Grand Prix, we'll lose them both, Andy, and that's a certainty.
What state's the park in at the moment?
Oh, it's dreadful, Andy. Dreadful. That's why I went over, Andy. I just went out the back, across Duke's Avenue, and totally good people. They're lovely people, Andy. You know, I mean, they don't live in a state like that, wherever they come from, Andy. So it's absolutely horrendous to accept people to come over and camp in those conditions. You know.
So, I mean, do you think in the future the department and the council will get their heads together?
Oh, Bobby, I mean, hang on a minute. I might be going to win the lottery, Andy, first, and before we do that. I very much doubt that. That's the problem there. Therein lies the problem, Andy. He won't meet together. He won't say, listen, we've got to do that. They lose if that had been a TD, they lose the TD as well, Andy. That'll go. And then the Grand Prix, they were cutting down the TD this year, you see, weren't they? You know, in 10 days or something. And they lose all these fantastic events, Andy, and it's just because these idiots at the corporation, these idiots at the Isle of Man, wherever they are, anyway. But something has to be done, Andy. Slip up on the way up, Andy, on your way home, and just go along Lower Duke's Road and go onto just go onto the road by the police station there. and you can stop there and you can look and you can see straight away as you get out of the car. And this shouldn't happen. I mean, you know, you say, oh well, we weren't expecting the rain to be that bad. What are you talking about? Rain, it comes down and it floods places. You know, so there it is, and it's never ever been drained since it was never ever been drained.
Okay.
Period.
All right, Tommy, good to hear from you. Thanks for being with us.
Cheers, Andy.
40 minutes to 1 on Manx Radio. Regarding the probation service, we were talking earlier on this week with Jane Paul Wilson, the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, and Dan Davis, the Chief Officer, about the probation office and rehabilitation. Regarding the probation office, how can it possibly function properly when the courts constantly refer people into the probation service without any consideration of how poorly resourced it is? This leads to more and more cases being put onto an already overloaded workforce. And you heard Dan Davis and Jane Paul Wilson talking about the prison. It's full. We now have those temporary cells, temporary accommodation blocks that they're now using for certain categories of prisoners. But I mean, time was when that was built, it was nobody ever thought the darn thing would ever be full, but it is at the moment. I mean, hats off to the police, because they've got a lot of people inside there and they're imprisoning people guilty of quite serious offences. But we're full. 222 says, Andy, London City air traffic control's gone fully digital, controlled via NATS, the National Air Traffic Service in Swanwick in Hampshire. Maybe this is a route the Isle of Man should go down. I believe, and somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there was a proposal or a notion that air traffic control at Ronaldsway could be done remotely, possibly from Liverpool. Now, I wouldn't have thought that would go down terribly well, but somebody somewhere may just say that's the way to do it in the future. If you want, you can just do it remotely, do it digitally from somewhere else. No doubt all the Met can be done remotely. All the sensors can provide their readings remotely. But really, first of all, we spent a fortune on a new air traffic control tower, and it's very nice, it's very posh. Is that something? As there was a scheduled midnight sailing to Liverpool Sea Terminal, staff must have been rostered to cover this. They would only be stood down when the steam packet cancelled the sailing. They could have remained on duty to help passengers, says Texter 014.
When the Mannin Line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
You know, when you come into the archive room, you can never be completely sure what you're going to find.
I didn't think we were going to see the execution scene.
But it's probably wise to be a bit suspicious if someone says,
"Can I talk nice to you?"
And will we find out the full story?
They didn't want public thinking that the artist was actually dead, and it was then put away in a deep freeze.
Oh dear, I don't think that's supposed to happen.
You can hear how it all turns out and whether Frank Spencer really is there by listening to The Archive Room tonight at 5:30, or pick up the podcast whenever it suits you at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
It's 11 minutes now before 1 on Manx Radio. Got some messages in from, I think, Catherine. Oh, before we get to Catherine, it's Julian. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. Just going to talk about the thing that was mentioned before about why would there be a conspiracy about renewables and stuff. However, you remember some time ago, a load of the NatWest payment card machines went down for nearly a week over here.
Yep.
What happens if the same thing happens to a remote control of Ronaldsway? And if the aircraft are down because there is no way to control it, you're going to have to wait for people to be put on the boat and brought here. And what happens if there's 3 or 4 days of storms?
It's interesting. I mean, the people who propose this, and we heard that there's some air traffic control that's done remotely and digitally in various places. Now, if somebody suddenly proposed that we could do our air traffic control remotely, whether it's from Liverpool or wherever else, because the standard of technology is up to it, and if somebody then said, "Oh, that's going to save you," let's just pick a number out of it's going to save you £5 million a year. Somebody somewhere would think that would be a good thing to look at.
Right, but apart from London City, there were proposals, I think, for Inverness and Aberdeen and various places like that. And it was basically everyone that had any knowledge of this said, no way. I mean, I think City is done because Swanwick's literally up the road. I mean, people can get there relatively quickly if there was a problem. It's a different kettle of fish here. You've got, does anyone think that the internet is so robust that, you could be coming in and all of a sudden all the screens go out and there is no controller locally to guide you in the fog, for example, or whatever?
Well, as you say, common sense and a practical nature would say that we have to have an air traffic, physical air traffic controllers, men and women in the tower that can see things and control things that they see. We all know that, but it costs a fortune. I mean, everything costs money. You have to have a certain number rostered. We had a brand new air traffic control tower put up as well. So, to have that and to have a proper airport, you have to put the money in. It has to be funded to a certain level. So
you could say like a remote robot doing heart surgery and brain surgery on the island where the operators are in London.
Well, that happens. That remote surgery does happen.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not going to volunteer for that. I think I'd rather have the person right there doing it. It's a bit like there's talk about having pilotless aircraft that are run on either AI or whatever.
Yeah.
Not much of an incentive for the AI robot on board to save the day, is there really? In terms of the other thing, people need to think, who actually is behind the manufacture of all the turbines? The propene and the ene bit means hydrocarbon fossil fuels for extruding the blades, or the epoxy resin that covers them, or who's making the concrete for all the towers.
Yeah.
Did I remember that some of the Morecambe and Morgan thing is in collaboration with BP? The gearbox oil is supplied by Shell for all the turbines. And Equinor, who are the ones that are doing this high wind floating thing that has been towed away because it's been destroyed off Aberdeen. Well, Equinor was Statoil, and they've just announced that they've just drilled and got 1 trillion cubic feet of gas from the seabed off Norway. So what are we talking about here?
The whole point is, Julian, if you are just a layperson, if you're a person just going about your everyday life, this just washes over people because people get battered by statistics and opinions. And, of course, everybody's got an opinion because a lot of the people are in it because they're in business. So
there's more oil and gas being got out the ground now than there was 5-10 years ago because we've offshored everything to China for production. So Russia's sending all their facilities that way. And guess what? If you make something in England and bring it here, it's a lot less than putting it in a massive ship, a diesel ship, and bringing it 6,000-7,000 miles from Guangzhou, for example.
But you see, I just come back to that. Every time, come back to the granular detail. Most people have got bigger things in their life that they're bothered about. This is being, we're now in a situation whereby the politics has met ecology. The ecological movement started in the 1970s. It's transmogrified now into political policy all over the world. And the public is at the bottom end. We're on the receiving end of all this. And really, most people don't care who's making money out of it, just as they never cared where their electricity came from or their gas came from. They just want the cooker to work or the heating to work. So now we're being, you're somebody who looks at this and follows it very, very closely as well. I mean, surely you understand most people don't care where their electricity comes from.
care how much the bill is. I mean, why is it that the cost of gas has dropped massively since they jacked it up in 2022 when the Ukraine war started?
Yeah.
I think the market price at the wholesale end has gone from about, I think it's dropped 14 times now. It's down at £60 a megawatt hour, whatever it is. So why are they announcing?
I agree. And again, why do most people, most people cheerfully, not cheerfully, but most people under duress pay 29p per kilowatt hour on the Isle of Man, probably unaware that it's dirt cheap elsewhere.
Absolutely. Look at Iran, it's like 3p a unit or something.
Yeah, but just go to places like America. In certain places in America, it's an awful lot cheaper.
Only in the states that haven't done renewables. If you actually look at the map, every state that started doing heavily into solar or wind on the coastlines, they're all much higher than the ones that haven't done it, interestingly.
All right. Well, we'll see. Okay, good to hear from you. Thanks, Julian.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
Okay. Text. Oh, thank you. Text to 376. Yeah, by all means, just pick up the phone. 376. Call 66 13 68. Who would travel with a child on a midnight sailing anyway? Says 910. Well, many people do. Many people travel back to the Isle of Man on a 2 a.m. sailing from Heysham. So travelling with a child at night time is not unknown. We should bring AI in for air traffic controllers, says Des. Well, as Julian said, would you be happy if it were an AI pilot or an AI air traffic controller? Not got time to get to this today. But thanks to Julie, who just said, have you looked at what's happening in the Shetland Isles with their onshore wind farm, SSE, the Scottish power company, have started a big onshore wind farm in Shetland. Thank you, Julie, for that. I think we did a feature this morning on The Breakfast Show regarding that. Des said people are going to care if there's no electricity to cook their dinner. Well, I mean, really. Could you tell the difference between wind scale electricity or Calder Hall or Sellafield? It's just electricity. That's it for the open line. Back tomorrow. Crikey, it's Friday tomorrow. Thanks to Howie Kane on the phones today.
WINT